So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Swiss Press Club and its director, Pierre Rucci, I would like to welcome you all for this press conference. My name is Tobias Clerc, and I will be moderating today's press conference, entitled A Disruptive Technology to Rehabilitate Polluted Sites Without Using Chemicals and Moving the Contaminated Soil. We are pleased to welcome today the two founding members of Exlterra. They are Mr. Frank Muller, the CEO, and Mr. Andrew Niemczyk, the CTO. These gentlemen will present us with a breakthrough in soil remediation, a recurring problem for mining companies, for example, nowadays. Without further ado, I will give the floor to Mr. Frank Muller, who will start the presentation. Mr. Muller, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I would like to welcome everyone to our first ever press conference. We are here speaking from our Hazel Park facility in Michigan, USA. Today's objective is to inform you about some exciting new development at Exlterra. About 15 minutes is the time we will take for that. And then Andrew and I will take all of your questions. Andrew Niemczyk, who sits next to me, is the chairman of Exlterra and in charge of our technological platform. Andrew grew up in Poland and eventually managed to leave the communist country in 1984. Since then, he lives in the USA. He has developed numerous and patented numerous technologies in various fields. My name is Frank Muller. I'm the CEO of Exlterra. I grew up in Geneva, Switzerland, and my first professional life, I worked in various banks in Switzerland until I was 40. I then sensed the urge to do something meaningful in my life, and I moved to Detroit in 2011 to find opportunities. It is in April of 2012 that I met Andrew, and we immediately connected. And since 2013, we are partners and are leading and growing Exlterra together. Exlterra, excellence for Earth, has only one mission since the beginning. We develop and market disruptive and sustainable technologies to address the most pressing environmental issues on the planet. We already commercialized two technologies called GAPS and NEPS. GAPS, who stands for Groundwater Energy Passive System, is a technology that replaces traditional drainage and addresses stormwater issues in a very sustainable way. GAPS accelerates water infiltration into the ground. It is used on sports fields like golf or football, parks, gardens. GAPS is also used around houses to manage excess moisture around foundation. Here you can see a sample of a GAPS unit. Our second technology that we already developed many years ago is called NEPS, which stands for Nutrient Enrichment Passive System. NEPS, once installed around a tree, will increase the nutrition availability for a tree, and it will also favor bacterial life. As a result, trees don't need fertilizers and pesticides anymore. They grow stronger and healthier. NEPS is mostly used for production trees like apple trees, orange trees, or vines, and is also used for private usage in residential homes or in very demanded urban forestry. Obviously, Exlterra is growing fast. We have offices in Switzerland, in the United States, and in Poland. We sell our technologies on 3 continents and experiencing strong success. We are 100% independent and supported by many impact investors. All the technologies we sell are developed in-house and are systematically patented. We partner with specialists to install our various technologies into the ground across the world. Today, we're proud to announce that we have developed a breakthrough technology capable of addressing soil pollution on site in a very simple and sustainable way. But before jumping into the details of our technology, please allow me to remind everyone what soil pollution really is and how costly it is for all of us. As you know, nature is in constant rebalance, and the growing human activity unbalance the natural life cycle. And one of the worst consequences of soil is soil pollution, which directly or indirectly impacts life in general, as you find it in the water, in the air, and in your food. Soil pollution is a result of the inability of nature to absorb fast enough the large amount of waste or output created by our civilization, and that inevitably keeps accumulating. Besides the catastrophic environmental cost that we all already see in front of our eyes, there is also a gigantic financial cost supported by governments, companies, and citizens. According to the United Nations, global economic losses caused by soil degradation are expected to exceed 10% of the world's annual GDP. So, what is done today to address contaminated soil? First, it is important to know that there are many types of pollutions and therefore many types of treatments. I'm not going into the details of all the common techniques used to decontaminate polluted sites. But to simplify, I will say there's two approaches. Scooping the soil and remove some polluted layers to bring them to a treatment facility or eventually to disperse them in less concentration on a new site is one approach. To neutralize or contain or wash the pollutants, depending on its type, is another approach. This is done on site, and it can be done biologically, chemically, physically, or even through soil stabilization. There are, however, numerous issues with all those techniques. Removing the soil is costly, and it's very carbon intensive. On-site remediation is not always working and is also very costly. But most importantly, all those techniques do not fully solve the problem and often take very long time to show results. So, what is our approach? What is Exlterra's approach to solve environmental issues? Well, in order to bring a solution to a specific problem, you need to be able to address the causes, not the symptoms. You need to answer to many why questions, many why questions, until you get to the cause. Once you get to the cause, the next step is to build a solution that is sustainable, if possible, energy passive, to directly address the problem. This attitude forces you to observe everything as a system. Let me give you an example with the NEP system, which is our technology for trees. It all started with one question. Why do trees struggle more and more to grow, and why is their general health and yield declining? After careful analysis of the situation, we concluded that the natural cycle of the leaves falling and feeding the ground, as well as the fruit, is broken. Because we collect the leaves, we cut the forest, and we collect the fruits. Basically, the ground is no longer fed naturally. In addition, with more and more external products we use to try to feed the trees, plus soil pollution, the bacterial life, so important for the tree health, is negatively impacted. The combination of less food and poor bacterial life is almost always the cause for failing trees. We then came up with the following observation before developing our solution. We know trees populate the earth since millions of years. And for millions of years, they fed the earth in successful layers. Well, if we can move those nutrients trapped in those layers and bring them towards the root system, then we can help naturally a tree and at the same time favor bacterial life. This is how NEPS was developed, a passive system that enables the earth, enables the nutrients coming up from down the earth towards the root system. So let's jump now to what we did for our decontamination technology. How did we approach that issue? So by using the same systematic approach, we started to deep dive into the soil contamination issue already many years ago. We noticed that, of course, industries who extract raw material and assemble them in various forms, it can be plastic, it can be steel, whatever, we do assemble. They cannot disassemble or recycle them safely. As a result, they keep accumulating, and nature is unable to disassemble them fast enough through its natural process. Powerful and wonderful initiatives like the circular economy will help slow down the extraction of raw material and help create new technologies. But polluted sites are still there and need to be cleaned. We concluded that what was needed is a system that helps nature to accelerate the decay of contaminants directly into the ground. Using our approach and knowledge, we have developed a passive system that operates with nature to help the soil process the contaminant faster. The system, and I have a sample here in front of you, consists of a series of those elongated tubes of various lengths. Those units are installed into the ground according to a layout or engineering specifically developed by Exlterra. We do install those various units into the ground with a drill rig. And you can see behind me one example, one of our model, since we are in our production facility today. Once those single units are installed into a ground, they will start to interact with each other and becoming a system. In order to interact with each other, we reuse the renewable energy sources and forces available in nature. So, in order to demonstrate our technology, we have partnered with a world-renowned research institute to establish a research protocol, as well as the collection of soil, air, and water sample around and on a polluted area that is highly polluted right now. This baseline will then be compared with the results of air, soil, and water quality after installation of our technology. So in October 2019, the Research Institute created the baseline and collected all the samples before installing our system. In November 2019, we started installing our system on 1 hectare of land. That installation took all the way to September 3rd, 2020 for completion. In April 2021, in a few weeks, the Research Institute will collect a new set of samples and analyze them for comparison with the 2019 baseline. Those results will be then communicated to you together with the Research Institute during our next conference in April 2021. I thank you for your attention. This is our part, and I would like to open for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muller. if you have questions, please raise your hand. You can do so by clicking on the reaction button on your screen and raise your hand like this, and you will appear on the screen for asking your question. If this is not the case, I will. I have maybe a first question. So, is this technology, can it be applied to all types of soil pollution? And if not, which type are more favorable or could be more favorable in your first observations?
Yeah, as you know, pollution is a complex topic, and it's not one size fits all. We have addressed one type of pollution, and during our demonstration that you will know about in April, and this technology is specifically dedicated for this type of pollution. However, it will work in any type of soil. So we plan to develop different technologies for different type of pollutions.
And so you're talking about remediation, sanitation, or cleanup of the soil. Like which level of output of the soil can be achieved with this technology?
Well, if you want to call something a solution, it needs to be a solution. And for us at Exlterra, we cannot call something a solution if there's still another problem somewhere else. So the goal and what we will demonstrate is that the location where we have installed our technology will be going back to its natural situation before the contamination happened.
So yeah, if anyone has a question, just...
Can I have a, Fabrice Delay, I have a question. Bonjour. I don't understand how it works because you've showed those tubes that goes into the soil. You explained that there is some kind of interaction between them. But can you be a little bit more specific about what are those tubes and what do you fill them with and how it works simply?
Sure. You want me to do?
No, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So, of course, that's always the $1,000 question or $1 million question. So that's how the tube looks like. It is actually not a tube. There is a specific shape on this tube, okay, that I will not show you too much about today, but the shape of the tube has a specific objectives. I give you an example. We have this technology called GAPS for the water. It has a specific shape and dimension, which is completely different from the technology called NEPS that addresses the health of trees. So each shape installed into a ground will have a different benefit or a different objective. So those, calling them tube is a little bit negative. I would say there's specific shape and dimension that we use. And we then collect those energies that are available in the ground that, I give you some example. You have magnetic field, you have gravity. There's a lot of forces on our planet that we can use. And those are the sources we use. Those are the energy sources we use to actually create those effects on the ground. And we will address... Sorry.
What kind of effect? Is it biological, physical, chemical?
Physical.
What?
Physical.
I will say one more thing about this. Each pollution has a different DNA. So the DNA, when you have it, so you approach different dimensions. So nature is operated on one thing. You not only want to grab it for yourself, you're gonna fail. So you have to understand that if I wanted something, I have to give it something. So you have to balance both those two together. If you can't balance this, So that's why our civilization, actually, all the science, they want to grab it, everything in the laboratoriums. Then, and the reality is behind is under nature. So we want to grab it, we tested both sides, okay, we want the effects. And reality is not, because if we do understand the positive and the negative, so we can balance them together. So that's why it's so important to each item of the product what we install, so has a tremendous DNA into this, is a tool. Then the rest of our nature is operated itself. So for example, if we have a pollution, put it, you know, in the field and hold it for 100 or 200,000 years, you are not going to see it. Nature will take it over by itself. So that's why it's important to understand how we developing this product. So we go through the DNA, actually the problems of this. So deep, so we balance them. Okay, and nature helping to developing, you know, results.
Let's assume you have a chemical pollutant onto a soil. Nature will take care of it by, well, first the pollutant will degrade naturally. I mean, the molecules would be fractioned at some point, and their dangerosity would be reduced simply because they are the molecules are broken into less dangerous molecules, let's say, or it would be geological, simply the fact that over time the product would be embedded into the soil and also degraded more or less naturally this way. So what you do is, like, you are with those shape, you are accelerating this phenomenon.
Exactly. Absolutely.
We accelerate it. So for example, I just want to give you a very quickly, what the human being is create. Actually, we do not create it, because we take it from the ground. Anything what we do, you know, your cellular phones, your everything, it comes from the ground. So we combine them together and we'll make it, you know, the product. So now we don't know how to take them down. So we do have a problems here. So that's why we work that direction.
Okay. There's still some.
Thank you very much. Could you maybe state from which media or organization you're speaking? Mr. Fabrice Delay?
I'm from ID News.
Oh, thank you very much. If you have any question, you can go on. I think Mr. Richard Golding had a question. So the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm Richard Golding. I'm Geneva-based, but I sit on the board of an international agricultural research institute. I'm not a biologist or a scientist, but at the same time, I care deeply about soil degradation. I'm sorry, I was just typing a chat message. I have to leave right now. I have to chair another meeting, which is starting in 3 minutes. So I don't have time to engage in a discussion. I will catch up on this on the recording afterwards, but I basically had the same question as Fabrice just said. The plastic tube sounds fascinating. You call it a technology. I would like to understand much more about how that technology actually works in order to produce the results that you're talking about. Mother Nature has a way of doing this. I'll put it very, very bluntly as well. So I'd like to be able to compare and contrast it with that. Anything that accelerates it is potentially interesting, but how it actually does it is fundamental to me to understand how interesting what it is you're saying. But I'm sorry I have to leave right now. I would love to continue the discussion. The press club has my email address. Feel free to get in touch, and I would love to talk about it further. But and I'd recommend everybody, I don't know if you guys have seen this new documentary that's swept across the US in the last few months and is now heading here in Europe called Kiss the Ground, of how the soil regeneration and regenerative agriculture is actually one of the most exciting things around right now for solving our carbon problem. That carbon is actually good news, not bad news. But anyway, we could go on, but I'd love to understand this technology more. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to leave. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you very much. I will give your coordinates to Mr. Muller after the event.
Even though he has to leave, I just want to say one more thing. Obviously, by end of April, we will announce a bit more about the technology. This is not the time right now to go deep dive into the technology. That's the first step. The second aspect is what matters to us, to Exlterra, is really the results, is the action. Because we are not here as judges of what is good or bad. We are not here to say, oh, we think, we're not here. On the press release, you have a list of links that you can dive into and look from specialists across the world who explain really that issue very well. However, for us, what matters is not to engage in that discussion. What matters to us is to solve the problems one after another. And so, yes, it is very high tech. Yes, it's very difficult to understand. We will get to that point by end of April. But what matters most for us are the results. And this is why we developed that technology, and we have partnered with a very high level partner to validate that. And those results will be what matters the most to us and the planet.
Thank you very much for these precisions. Is there any further questions? If not, I would like to thank you all for this press conference. And to take note of your further announcement for April, and I have the feeling we're looking forward for this information about how the technology works, and maybe some first result about the experiments you're conducting right away with a prestigious institute, apparently. So, in the name of Mr. Pierucci and the Press Club, I'd like to thank you for presenting us today with this new technology, and we're looking forward to having you back in April for further news.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.